All right, so in this lesson, we're going to take a look at zoning using zone portals. So we're going to take a practical look at how you can use this to optimize your own levels.
Right, what we're going to do is take a finished map, actually one of the ones that ships with the game, take a look at the central part of this map, and see how we would go about zoning it. Taking a look at, if you had a finished map, how would you go about zoning part of it?
Okay.
Now, yes, the end result of this is going to be similar to how the map originally was, but this is the basically how you would go about doing that.
Okay, so kind of a workflow sort of thing.
Right. Now, taking a look at this part of the map, the first thing we have is kind of a doorway to this area, which, I mean, that would make a great place to go and throw a zone portal.
Right. Well, tell you what, before you fire up with the zone portal, why don't you go ahead and load up the map itself so we can see what it looks like without being optimized?
You know, that's a good idea, since this what this map is actually where I took all the zoning out of this area. So if I load the game, we can go into R mode 1 and see exactly what's drawing as we run around.
Cool. And we're loading.
So first thing, I'm going to jump down to that area and then activate R mode 1. So let's go. Alright, there's the doorway. R mode 1. So, yes, we have wireframe, but we are still on the outside. Let's walk in.
Right.
But even when we're on the inside now, so we're looking very close to a wall inside a tight area, yet we're drawing what's behind the wall, the rest of the room, what's outside, the train in the distance.
Yeah, even things which are technically occluded are still rendering in, and we can still see them all.
Right. Again, there's no zoning in this area, so there's no clues as to where the engine should stop drawing anything.
Wow.
So with that, now let's go back to UnrealEd and take a look at what we can do about this.
Okay.
So the first thing, starting with this doorway. Let me go ahead and throw the first zone portal across here. Also in the top view, I'm going to hit W to hide my static meshes. So let me zoom out a little. So if we look at this brush here and actually select it, okay, there's the area we're going to be looking at for the zone.
Okay.
I'm going to load up the Sheet Builder brush, right-click on its properties, and let's see, in the Y-axis, build the brush. For the height, I'll set that to about 160, and the width to about 320.
All right.
Something like that. Let me zoom out a little so I can find my Builder brush. Drag it over, zoom in. And while I'm at it, even though this is close, I might actually drop my grid down to 4. I'm going to need that later for other places where I have to line stuff up.
Sure.
Also, hit W to disable static meshes in this view, so I can drag this down a little bit. Again, let me take a look at that brush. So there's the brush we're working with. So that pretty much fits around it pretty well. It is extending over the ends, but again, with the zone portal, that should be no problem. Having it extend into geometry should not be a problem.
Right. It'd be probably better for it to extend into the geometry rather than have gaps anyway.
Right. That would make more sense for creating a seal, if you will.
Right.
So with that now, I'm just going to open up the texture browser and maybe go back and find that WM Textures pack so I can get my zone portal texture.
And just as a quick note, occasionally if you do leave a gap sometimes when you're setting up zone portals, your zone may still work, but that's usually an exception and not quite the rule. I really wouldn't rely on that.
Right. I mean, if you took the old box level, for example, and maybe moved the zone portal out just a little bit so there was a visible space, it might actually still zone.
Right.
But it's good just to make sure that everything logically seals.
Okay.
So with this ready to go, I can hit the Add Special button, and let me check Portal, Invisible, and Non-Solid. Again, I could have just hit the Zone Portal prefab, but again, that's the same result. It's just a matter of getting the correct checkboxes selected.
Okay.
I'll hit OK to add that, and there's the Zone Portal.
Awesome.
For the next one, I'm going to look at this area over here. We have this Addition brush, which I'm going to use as a visual aid or marker. And what this does is it's kind of this beam around in this area. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is change the axis of the brush. Sure, I could rotate it, but since I've been careful looking at the axes, it's pretty easy just to adjust it here. Let me go and drag that over, and of course I'm going to have to widen it out some too. Maybe widen it out to about 448, and up the height to maybe 168 to fill the hallway out like it's supposed to.
Okay.
So let me drag this in, line it up. That looks good. Let me check the front view again and make sure it's lined up just to the floor and to the ceiling. So far that looks good, so I'm going to go ahead, go back to Add Special, hit OK. So we've got that one. Same thing on the other side. Got another brush I can use kind of as a visual aid. Add Special, OK, and there we go. So now really we could rebuild geometry to test and see how the zoning is working here.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Quick rebuild. So again, quite a few brushes to look at, but it won't take that long. Now, to test this, I'll simply activate the zone portal view, and check it out. From outside, dark blue. Inside, much lighter teal color.
Awesome.
So yes, we do in fact have 2 zones here, or the zone portals we have set up so far have been successful.
Very cool.
I'm going to switch this back to dynamic lighting now. Now let's take a look at the other end of this room. It's basically just a mirror copy almost.
Right.
So what I could do is just grab both of these, Control W to duplicate them, and simply line them up on the other side of the room.
That'll save some time.
And again, same thing with the doorway. Since I've got the height correct, and when you duplicate it only adjust in the X and Y, the Z is still fine. So all I have to do is simply drag in the top view, line it up, and all is good. Something like that should work. Now, of course, the brushes aren't really going to draw until we rebuild. Plus, I'm going to wait till we rebuild to test the zoning anyway. We have other brushes we could take a look at.
Okay.
Now, for the next part, we're actually going to take this room in here and completely zone it off.
Cool.
So let me grab the sheet brush again, and I'm still using the X-axis, which should line up fairly well, except that I want to bring the width in some, maybe the width all the way back to 320. Now the height's going to have to be upped somewhat for this to fit. If you notice, this opening here is quite a bit taller than the actual brush.
Right.
So let me zoom out a little bit to see how it's lining up. So with this, we could even up it to something like, let's say, maybe about 200 or 256 itself. Again, if it goes above, that's not really a problem. There's just nothing else to get in the way, really.
Right.
So let me just start dragging this up, line it up. As a matter of fact, it might not hurt to drag it up even more. I'm going to hit W to hide my static meshes. And that's actually working fairly well. Maybe even bring it down just a little bit. Let's say. Or I'll just bring it through the floor some. This should work just fine, as I don't see anything else that it's going to be running through. But it'll be quick to test in just a minute when we rebuild.
It looks from here like it's going to work out very well.
So again, not an exact alignment, but as long as it seals off just fine, then we're good to go. It's not like it's anything that's going to be drawing, so it's either going to seal the zone or it's not.
Okay.
So add that one in, and then same on the other side. Just as a little side note, you'll notice that this corridor in here happened to be exactly 320 units across, which is a good point as you're building your map. Just if you keep everything snapped very cleanly, it'll really help in everything else, including zoning.
Okay.
So one more add special, so we get this zoned in. Now, the last thing we have to worry about is the little hole in the ceiling, so let me switch the brush axis to horizontal, and maybe change the height and width to 240. So with 240, that should more than cover the opening here. Just align that in a little bit, like such. And I'm actually going to use the perspective here, holding Control and both mouse buttons to constrain to Z, just so I can kind of visually line it up.
Right, it looks like that's going to work just fine.
So one last add special. And let's rebuild geometry and see how this is looking.
Cool.
So turn on the zone view. So we definitely have a zone in here.
We got pink inside, a lighter pink on the outside, so it's actually kind of maroon inside that. Then purple, then teal, then pale purple, lavender, I guess.
Back
and then
outside.
Blue on the outside.
Now if we go all the way back to the front room, it should be... Okay, yeah, like we checked. So we do, in fact, have everything zoned off just fine.
Yep.
So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and launch into the game. Now, I know I didn't rebuild the lighting or anything, but again, we're going to be dropping into a wireframe to test. So.
Right, so it doesn't really matter.
So just like before, I'm going to run down to that room and then activate wireframe.
Okay.
Alright, good old R mode 1. So far, hey, look at that.
Oh,
the
wow.
moment we get inside, any zone we don't see into doesn't draw. Like that whole center room isn't drawing. And as we look around, various parts of the hallway start to disappear.
So you see all kinds of stuff disappearing as we move around.
So only until we walk into an area does that area start to draw. So this is definitely much more efficient as we have this whole area basically keeping track of where we are almost.
Right.
And only drawing what's absolutely necessary.
That just rocks.
Now, granted, this isn't the full setup, technically, that the original had. It had some other elements that haven't quite been covered yet. But from a zoning perspective, that pretty much takes up that central area.
Very cool. So I guess that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this lesson. So thanks a lot, everyone.